My name's Alex Menzel, and me, along with my eldest daughter, Emma Menzel, we have approximately 500 acres where we have primarily Black Angus.
I'm Emma Menzel, and I work with my father in Archie, Missouri at a cattle operation. And then we've recently started doing drone seed sprays.
Spreading fungicide, herbicide, or cover crop seed using two different models of drones, a DJI Agris T40 and T50, and then also do a little bit of crop scouting and mapping using a Mavic 3M. I initially got my pilot's license in 1996, so I've been flying for a long time. Cover crop seeding was something that we added over time. So one of the primary uses of drones here in our area of Missouri is fungicide, primarily corn fungicide. But when you get into fall, there's more and more farmers that are interested in applying cover crop seed over the top of a standing crop, say a standing crop of corn or beans. It's generally less expensive to spread seed with a drone than it is to drill it in. But you tend to have what I consider to be like insurance. You tend to have less insurance when you broadcast a seed versus when you drill it in. What I would think about in your mind when you're thinking about is the drone the appropriate tool is ask yourself, because most farmers have experience using other types of broadcast spreaders, is that other type of broadcast spreader the right tool? And if the answer is no, the drone won't be right. The only place where the drone, in my opinion, beats a ground-driven unit is where you have an existing cash crop that you don't want destroyed by driving over it with your tractor, and when you have small, irregularly shaped fields. Once you take a ground-driven rig off the table and you're talking about broadcasting cover crop seeds, you're basically left with aerial application, something that can come over the top of the standing cash crop without destroying it or disturbing it.
The seeds spray out in almost like a cone shape. They're able to get underneath areas that a normal application via ground rig or airplane could not get access to. So you're losing 6 feet of crops because you're not able to seed that if there's overhanging trees or branches. So the drone is nice in the ability to maneuver it in places that other equipment just can't get to. A cool thing about the drone versus any other aerial application while having soybeans present is that the boom on the drone allows for a strong thrust of seeds into the soil with the presence of soybeans. So you're able to have the soybeans flourish while having the seeds present in that soil, so that when the soybeans are harvested, that seed's already there to start growing when they're gone.
Airplane tends to be the least maneuverable, but is also a little bit less expensive typically than a helicopter. Helicopter is very maneuverable, tends to be the most expensive of the three options. Drone tends to be the most maneuverable and the least expensive of the three options, but also the slowest. And so when you're talking about advantages and disadvantages, the price point obviously is the first thing that you're going to want to consider, but generally you can figure at this current time $14.50, maybe $14 up to $15 an acre is what a helicopter or an aircraft's going to spread for. Maybe a little bit less, maybe you can find them for $13. Drones usually are more in the $12, depending on the size of the field, even $11 range, so it's a little bit less expensive. Even if you're spreading, say, which is a pretty common rate for us, 30 pounds per acre, we can spread about 2.5 acres, so about 100 pounds per flight, and each flight takes about 5 to 6 minutes. Then the drone has to come back, get a new battery, and be refilled with seed. Obviously, a plane is carrying much, much more than that as a helicopter, and so they're able to cover much larger areas in one pass. So if it's a situation where you need to cover huge acreages over a short period of time, then a drone would not be as good as a plane or a helicopter because it just simply can't do that. For us to cover, say, if we're trying to do a very good job, 200 to 300 acres is the max of what we could cover in a day. And of course, a helicopter or a plane can cover far more than that. It can cover that almost in an hour. One other consideration in terms of how fast the drone can move, they're all going to have, based on either the speed of the spinner disc at the bottom, the gate size at which it can open and drop seed onto that spinner disc, the spray pumps, and the number of nozzles. All of those factors are going to change the rate at which it can either apply a liquid or a granular, also meaning seed or fertilizer, as it's moving across the ground. So if you're thinking, okay, I want to spread 50 pounds per acre, obviously the drone has to fly slower because it can only spread so many seeds per revolution of the spinning disc at the bottom. So in other words, let's just use some numbers. These aren't going to be exact, but let's say that you're spreading 100 pounds of seed per acre. The drone is probably only going to move across the field at 13 to 14 feet per second, maybe 8 feet per second, but it's not going to move at 30 feet per second because it cannot fly that fast and spread that much seed. So as you start to increase the amount of cover crop seeds you want per acre, the slower that drone is going to have to fly and the longer it's going to take to apply that seed. Now that would be true for a ground-driven unit too, but it's particularly true for small things like drones when they're spreading. So it's not so much a question of how big of a field you can do, it's how much time you have to be able to get that job done and how much time you're willing to give the drone to do it. The drone flies anywhere from say 8 feet per second to almost up to 30 feet per second. And so obviously the gate has to be able to open more and more rapidly as the drone flies more rapidly. So you have to have what's called a seeding profile set up for each individual type of cover crop seed mix.
So normally when we're spreading seed or spraying, we have 2 drones going off at the same time.
The drones are flying in sequence so that while one is out spreading, the other one is being refilled. When the other one is empty, it starts to come back. The one that's just been refilled and rebatteried takes off and goes back out and reinitiates.
Before we set off those drones, the first thing we're going to do is connect our remotes together, create a map of the land, and then divide the land in half.
And so we have a couple of different options. We can either map that by hand, by walking around the cornfield with the remote and plugging in the GPS locations of the edge of the field. We can fly the drone over the field and get to each of those corners where, say, the corn stops and the beans start, and we can map the edge of the field that way. Or we can fly a smaller Mavic drone, a 3M, over the field, collect imagery, and then upload that imagery, which is the current imagery of the field, into the drone.
I think that this is just the start of what we're going to see in terms of drones in agriculture application. When people start to realize how beneficial drones can be, not only with cover crops, but scouting, spray herbicide application, really a whole multitude of benefits and skills and services that this drone can provide. I think that as the younger generation gets into farming, we're going to see a lot more in terms of the combination of technology and agriculture.